So about a decade or so ago, after Pep Guardiola had completely reinvented the tactical landscape in football, there seemed to be a big debate about what centre-backs and full-backs should offer both in and out of possession. The old heads and people who cling on to the past were adamant that defenders were there to defend, and judging defenders, particularly centre-backs, on what they offer in possession was nonsensical. However, a decade later, I think pretty much everyone who knows anything about football accepts that it's not just enough for full-backs and centre-backs to be good defenders, they also have to offer something in possession as well. And now in 2023, the same debate is being had, but for goalkeepers. Now, the main debate around David De Gea being replaced isn't actually to do with how good a goalkeeper he is, as even though he does have deficiencies in his game, I think most people would accept that De Gea is probably one of the best goalkeepers in world football at the moment, and so this is more of a stylistic argument. In my opinion, the people that adamantly want David De Gea to stay at United, and are completely dismissive of any argument about why he may need to be replaced, don't understand the tactical importance of a goalkeeper, and just how an elite level ball playing goalkeeper would actually improve Manchester United. Now, not everyone who wants De Gea to stay falls into this category. A lot of people will admit that David De Gea is nowhere near an elite level ball playing keeper, and they understand the merits of having a ball playing keeper in your side. But their main argument is that De Gea is such a good shot stopper that it outweighs the deficiencies he has in other areas, to the point that United should actually keep him. That is an argument I could maybe get behind and could be a reason why I would want De Gea to stay, but only under certain conditions, and I'll come on to what those certain conditions are later on in the video. But to the people who seem to make the argument that goalkeepers are there to make saves and not there to make passes, and so shot stopping is all that matters, this is probably one of the most nonsensical arguments in football at the moment. It's the same as saying centre-backs and full-backs are just there to defend, and strikers are just there to score goals. It's an argument that is so simplistic that anyone who's watched football in any depth would completely dismiss it, as it doesn't even have an ounce of nuance. But before I get on to analysing De Gea, Costa and the other goalkeepers, let me first break down what is demanded from a modern day goalkeeper at the elite level. So I think you can break down modern day goalkeeping into four main areas: shot stopping, sweeping, cross claiming and ball playing. Shot stopping is obviously the one that most people associate with goalkeepers, and as you can guess, this is their ability to save shots, and this could be from close range with reflex saves, in 1v1 situations, or longer range shots around the box or outside of the box. But before I go any further, let me tell you about something that may interest anyone who is or wants to be a YouTuber, and that is that I will now be open to doing any reviews of any videos or channels that you have. If you are interested in anything below, then email me at atlantisfootball96@gmail.com with the type of review you want and a link to the video or channel you want me to review, and then I can just drop you my PayPal and send you over the review when it's done. If you are just starting out YouTube, then you don't need the detailed video review for any of your first few videos. I'd just go with the standard review, which will be basically my initial reaction to your video, giving you a few improvements that you can make and some things about the video that you should be doubling down on. Also, if you don't have a video but instead have an article or a blog, I'll include that in the standard review as well, so you can send me those as well. Once you're a bit more familiar with producing videos on YouTube, then maybe you can think about the detailed video review or even the whole channel review, where I'll put together a much more detailed review, giving you a lot more suggestions for improvements and providing some examples as well. I assume most of the videos will be football related, though you can also send me over any non-football ones as well if you want. But I'm not going to be reviewing any nerd shit like WWE or Minecraft, so don't send me those types of videos. But if you are interested in any of that, send me over an email, and of course thank you in advance for helping to support the channel. Cross claiming is pretty standard, the ability to come and claim crosses, whether this is from open play or from set pieces, but its ball playing ability and sweeping have really increased in importance over the last few years. Sweeping is a keeper's ability to come outside of his box, usually to clear up through balls over the top of the back line, and was made famous in recent times by Manuel Neuer, particularly at the 2014 World Cup, where he had probably the greatest sweeper keeper performance of all time, which came against Algeria in the round of 16, and Neuer was absolutely fantastic at coming off his line anytime the ball went in behind the Germany back line, which was needed with Mertesacker, Boateng, Hernandez and Mustafi all in that back line, so definitely not the quickest. But as I'll come on to in a bit, by having Neuer as a sweeper keeper, Germany were able to play a high back line, despite having a lack of pace in the defence. And it almost resembled a FIFA game, even when a through ball would go in behind the Germany back line, and you thought there was no way a goalkeeper could come out that far, Neuer would not only come out that far, but make the clearance as well. And so this meant that Algeria weren't able to take advantage of the lack of pace in Germany's backline, and Neuer was almost playing like an extra defender. He was also fantastic at coming off his line to claim crosses and punch aerial balls, which is extremely valuable in taking the pressure off your side. And when we look at David De Gea's FBref report, you'll see that this is a major deficiency in his game. But I think the benefits of a sweeper keeper in regards to its effect on the whole team are pretty overlooked by most people. If you have a keeper like De Gea who really isn't that comfortable coming outside of his box and doesn't have the anticipation or athleticism to make up that ground quickly, then just naturally when the opposition side has possession, particularly when they've moved the ball out of the build-up phase and are about to move the ball into the middle third, your backline has to sit a little deeper, particularly against fast forwards, in order to negate the threat of a long ball over the top of the backline, allowing the forward to run into the space that's been vacated. And so the knock-on effect of this is that with your backline sitting deeper, your overall pressing shape is a lot less vertically compact, leaving bigger spaces between the lines for the opposition to exploit, and overall making your press a lot less effective. However, if you have a sweeper keeper who has the ability to mop up when the ball goes over the top of the back line, this allows your backline to push higher up the pitch, increasing the vertical compactness of your press, meaning that even if the opposition has a quick forward, the threat of a long ball over the top of your high back line is somewhat nullified. And because your back line is further up the pitch, your overall pressing shape is a lot more vertically compact, reducing the space between the lines for the opposition and making your press a lot more effective. But now we come on to the area which has probably highlighted United's need for an improvement on De Gea the most, and that is ball playing ability. We saw in the opening 2 games of the season that when Ten Hag went with this style of play, playing out under pressure, using De Gea and the 2 centre backs, United really struggled. So much so that after that Ten Hag seemed to abandon this approach, going for a more direct build up when needed, which was when the opposition pressed them high. And so because of David De Gea's ball playing ability, Ten Hag was forced to adjust his possession system. And so I definitely think that this is kind of holding United back, as I think they would be much better if they had a keeper who's at the same level or close to the same level as the likes of Ederson, Ter Stegen, or even Aaron Ramsdale, whose passing is a massive complement to Arteta's build-up. Now we'll come on to Costa and De Gea's metrics in this department, but let's first visualise the importance of the ball playing keeper role in the build-up phase and how having a ball playing keeper would improve United. So let's imagine that United have Diogo Costa in goal. Then this means that in possession United effectively have an extra player, with Costa arguably being a better long passer than most outfield players. And so when the opposition is pressing aggressively man-to-man high up the pitch, this will give United a 4v3 inside their box, which will give United the player advantage in most situations, which will aid their ability to play out through the press, and something they definitely can't do to the highest level with David De Gea in goal. So let's say Costa receives the ball and it's the man who was man-to-man pressing Casemiro who moves to close him down. Then from here Casemiro can just move to the side, opening up a passing lane in behind the pressing player, and Costa will have the composure under pressure, the vision and the weight of pass to be able to play this pass, allowing Casemiro to receive the ball and turn out. If it's one of the opposition players who was man-to-man pressing one of the centre-backs who's in charge of moving to close Costa down, meaning not only is a pass into the single pivot Casemiro cut off, but if the presser was for example coming from the right side, then a pass back over to the centre-back on the right side is also going to be cut off. And so the keeper is forced into a long pass upfield. David De Gea certainly doesn't have the passing range of Costa, and so the majority of the time David De Gea's long balls upfield are going to result in United losing possession, whereas Costa would have the Ederson-like passing range to ping a pass either into the centre forward, Osimhen for example, could then control the ball and look to link the play, or he could go for the Hollywood ball over the top of the back line looking to free Rashford in behind, which is definitely something that Pep and City have been able to take advantage of with Ederson in goal. But the majority of the time the option I think Costa will go with is the lofted pass over the opposition's wide attacker, out to the fullback on the flank where the space usually is. And we actually do see United's press beaten by this type of ball quite often, with the games against Liverpool, Arsenal and Barcelona being great examples of this, as because United's wide midfielders sit high and narrow ready to press the centre-backs in the opposition's defensive third during the build-up phase, if you have a competent keeper like Ter Stegen or Ramsdale or Alisson at Liverpool, then they are pretty simply able to clip a pass over the top of your wide midfielder, and if the opposition's fullback can bring down the ball, then they've effectively beaten United's high press. But another situation where having Costa in goal could allow United to play out of pressure in their defensive third, would be to have Diogo Costa essentially play a system-splitting pass, threading the ball into one of Fernandes or Sancho sitting between the lines, and this is probably the hardest type of pass for a goalkeeper to pull off in this type of situation, because obviously if you get it wrong then the opposition are able to win the ball back in your half in a central position. But if you have a keeper like Costa who's going to be able to make these passes most of the time, then it's a great way of getting the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Jadon Sancho on the ball in central positions in behind the opposition's midfield, able to drive the ball forward into the opposition's half. And then once you also factor in the composure that a goalkeeper like Costa is going to bring to your build-up, then you can see just how essential and valuable a top-level ball-playing keeper can be, in terms of using their passing ability to firstly play out of the opposition's press, but also allow you to work the ball into your advanced creative players like Sancho and Fernandes a lot earlier on in the possession phase, whilst also getting them on the ball in more space for them to drive forward, and ultimately just allowing you to move your attack forward a lot more efficiently. And so I think I've done a pretty good job of explaining why a modern day keeper that can sweep and has great ball playing ability would massively improve Ten Hag's side. But now we come on to the goalkeeper comparisons, and we'll start between the big two, Diogo Costa and David De Gea. Now the only annoying thing is that because Costa plays for Porto in Liga NOS, which doesn't count as a top 5 European league, we can't compare the percentile rankings of each goalkeeper, but we can still look at the individual figures and still get a feel for the differences between the two keepers. So when we look at David De Gea's FBref report, the first thing you'll probably notice is that his post-shot XG minus goals allowed, which is the value probability of the shots you've faced minus the amount of goals you've conceded. So if a keeper is in the negative, they are conceding more goals than they should according to their XG model, whereas if you are in the positive, you are obviously overperforming it. And what we see is that David De Gea actually underperforms his post-shot XG minus goals allowed by a not insignificant 0.13 per 90, seeing him ranking just the 20th percentile. Now this could be for a variety of different reasons. Obviously David De Gea is one of the best shot stoppers in all of Europe, but I think one thing you do see from this metric is that a lot of the world class saves he does perform do actually come from long range shots. Yes, he is obviously fantastic at those quick reflex saves from short range, but I do think people's perception of just how good a keeper is at shot stopping is heavily skewed, because obviously everyone has selective memory, and so when you're thinking back to all the good times of a keeper, these Hollywood blockbuster saves that look excellent in slow motion replays stand out a lot more heavily in your mind than say the average good save from a goalkeeper that goes somewhat unappreciated and doesn't get as many plaudits as a type of saves we see De Gea make. Now whilst I do still think David De Gea is a fantastic shot stopper, I do think this metric highlights that he maybe isn't as extraordinary as everyone makes out, and when we go on to Costa's numbers you'll see what I mean. But the more concerning parts of David De Gea's FBref report are further below. When we look at the percentage of crosses he's stopped, it's nothing short of hugely disappointing, as he ranks in just the 2nd percentile with a cross stopping percentage of just 2%, and this is something we've seen throughout David De Gea's whole career. He just doesn't have the type of aerial dominance that you would expect from a top level keeper to come and claim crosses and catching them rather than punching them in order to take the pressure off your team. And because David De Gea doesn't have this ability, United often struggle to clear their lines from crossing situations, allowing the opposition to come back and sustain the attack, whereas having a keeper who is aerially dominant would allow them to come and claim crosses and shut down the opposition's attack instantly. But when we look at Costa's FBref report, we can see that his crosses stopped percentage is more than 4 times higher than David De Gea's at 8.2%, and so despite Costa having some struggles during the World Cup in this department, I definitely would say that he'd be a massive improvement on David De Gea when it comes to claiming crosses. And despite some people thinking that bringing in a ball playing keeper means you are sacrificing shot stopping ability, however Costa goes some way to rebuff this, as he ranks in the 79th percentile for his post shot XG minus goals allowed when compared against every other goalkeeper in the next top 8 competitions after the top 5, with a rate of 0.18 per 90. And his shot stopping performance in the Champions League is even better, as he ranks in the 85th percentile when compared against every other keeper in the competition, with a rate of 0.47 per 90, showing just how good a shot stopper Costa is. And so this notion that replacing David De Gea with Diogo Costa would lead to a significant reduction in shot stopping ability is just not true at all. Costa isn't just a great sweeper keeper or ball playing keeper, he's a great keeper period. And you can also see just by looking at David De Gea's defensive actions outside of the penalty area and average distance of those defensive actions, where he ranks in the 25th and 57th percentile respectively, that coming out of his penalty area in order to sweep up through balls is definitely not a strong part of his game. Costa on the other hand is a lot more comfortable doing this, ranking in the 86th percentile for his defensive actions outside of the penalty area and the 87th for his average distance of defensive actions, with both of those numerical figures being substantially higher than De Gea's. But it's when we come on to both keepers' ball playing ability where we start to see a substantial difference. As I said, De Gea ranks pretty low for all of his passing metrics, but the one in particular that is the best for comparison is his launch pass completion percentage, where he ranks in just the 14th percentile with a rate of just 30.5%, whereas for comparison, Costa ranks in the 89th percentile when compared against every other keeper in the next 8 big competitions, with a rate of 43.3%. And just by watching Costa, you can see the quality of his passes. He's capable of going short and playing out from the back, whilst also having the ability to accurately spray a long-range pass, releasing a player in behind the back line or moving the ball out to the flank. And I would go as far to say that other than ter Stegen, Ederson, and maybe Alisson as well, Diogo Costa is probably the best ball-playing keeper in world football at the moment. And by having a keeper like Costa in goal, this is going to dramatically improve United's ability to play out of a press, because Costa's ball-playing ability essentially gives United an extra man in that defensive third, and he can play pretty much any variety of pass, short, medium or long. And what this will probably result in next season is teams not even attempting to press United, as we've seen with City, and instead preferring just to sit off and allow United to move out of their defensive third. Now, I do think there is a way that De Gea could potentially stay at United for 1, maybe 2 seasons maximum, but it would be under the conditions that it would only be a 2-year contract, which I'm doubtful whether De Gea would go for, and his salary would have to be dramatically reduced from the £19.5 million he's currently on to maximum £12.5 million in my opinion. And alongside this, United would also have to bring in a second choice ball playing keeper with the view of not just applying pressure to De Gea's starting spot, but also being his long-term replacement. Now, if you do want me to do a whole video analysing who should be a backup ball playing keeper to De Gea, then let me know in the comment section below, and remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified if that video comes out. Check the description for more videos, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more content as well.